I never expected to find him like this. The house was unusually quiet that afternoon, and the silence felt heavy, almost suffocating. I walked in and saw my son sitting alone on the couch, his small shoulders slumped, staring at the floor like he was lost in a world I couldn't see. He looked older, smaller, fragile in a way that made my chest tighten. Something had shifted in him, something I hadn't noticed until that exact moment. "Hey, buddy, what's wrong?" I asked softly, sitting down beside him. His eyes didn't meet mine. He held his blanket tightly, the one he had carried since he was little, and it seemed to be the only thing keeping him grounded. "It's okay to tell me," I said gently, resting my hand on his shoulder. "Whatever it is, we can handle it together." He hesitated. I could see the fear in his eyes, the kind that comes from carrying a burden alone for far too long. His words faltered, and then he whispered, "I think I'm failing. In school, in everything. I'm just not good enough." The tears in his eyes were silent, but they spoke louder than any words. My heart clenched as I realized he had been struggling on his own, feeling like he wasn't enough. I pulled him into my arms, holding him tightly. "Oh, sweetie, you're more than enough," I whispered. "Everyone struggles sometimes. Making mistakes doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're learning." He shook his head, still unable to believe it. "But what if I disappoint everyone? What if I ruin everything?" His voice cracked. I felt a sharp ache in my chest. My little boy, who used to run around laughing, now carried worry that felt far too heavy for him. "I promise, you're not alone," I said. "We'll face this together. Step by step." He stayed in my arms, leaning against me, small and quiet. After a while, he pulled back slightly and whispered, almost to himself, "I just don't want to let you down, or Dad." Hearing that broke me. I had no idea he felt so much pressure. I gently held his face and said, "You could never let us down. We love you no matter what. Nothing you do will change that." But even as I said it, I could feel that this wasn't just about grades or schoolwork. Something deeper was troubling him. He looked at me with wide, fearful eyes, and then in a trembling voice, he said, "Mom, I've been keeping something from you. Something I can't handle on my own." My heart skipped. I had a feeling this was serious. "Whatever it is, you can tell me. I'm here. I won't be angry," I said. He nodded, tears brimming, hands trembling. The weight of months of silence and worry was written all over him. Finally, he whispered the words that left me speechless. I feel like I'm a disappointment. That I'll never be good enough for you and Dad." Hearing this, I felt my chest tighten as the truth sank in. My son, my bright, kind-hearted boy, had been silently battling feelings of inadequacy. All this time, he had carried this burden alone, not wanting to hurt us or make us disappointed. I pulled him close again, holding him as tightly as I could. "Oh, my love, why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, my voice breaking slightly. His small hands gripped mine. "I didn't want to upset you," he said. "I thought, maybe I could fix it on my own." I felt tears prick my eyes. The thought that he had suffered quietly while trying to protect us was unbearable. "I know it's scary," I said softly. "And it's okay to feel that way. But you're not alone anymore. I'm here, always." He rested his head on my shoulder, and I could feel the tension slowly ease from his body. It was a fragile peace, but it was a start. I realized in that moment that love alone wasn't enough. He needed reassurance, guidance, and understanding. He needed to know that making mistakes, feeling worried, or struggling didn't make him less worthy. I stayed with him, listening as he spoke about school, friends, and moments where he felt inadequate. Every story, every word, revealed how heavy the burden had been for him. I kept telling him that it was normal to feel overwhelmed sometimes, that everyone had fears and doubts. But I also promised that he didn't have to carry it all alone. "We're a team," I said. "And part of being a team is sharing the hard stuff. You don't have to do this by yourself." He nodded slowly, his small body finally starting to relax. He confessed more then, admitting that he had been lying to himself about his struggles. He tried to put on a brave face for school, for friends, even for us, but the truth was different. He felt pressure to succeed, to be perfect, to meet expectations that seemed impossible. I held his hand and told him that perfection wasn't the goal. Being kind, being honest, trying your best, that's what matters most. Everything else can be learned along the way. He cried then, softly, tears falling onto my sleeve. I didn't try to stop them. I let him feel it all, the fear, the sadness, the guilt. It's okay to cry, I whispered. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. He looked at me then, a mix of relief and guilt in his eyes. The weight on his shoulders hadn't disappeared, but sharing it made it lighter. Finally, he told me the reason behind all of this worry, the root of the sadness that had been eating at him for months. He had been scared to tell me, thinking it would make me upset or disappointed. But once he spoke, I could see a tiny spark of relief in his eyes. He had been alone in this, and for the first time, he realized he didn't have to be. I held him through the evening, listening, talking, and comforting. And even as we shared this moment, I knew there was more ahead. Questions to answer, fears to face, and reassurance to give. But I promised myself that I would be there, every step, until he felt strong enough to stand on his own. The quiet of the house settled around us, but it felt different now. It wasn't heavy anymore, it was a gentle, comforting silence. I stayed by his side as he drifted off to sleep, tears dried but worry lingering in the corners of his mind. I knew tomorrow would bring new challenges, but at least tonight, he felt safe, and that was enough for now. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. Even as I watched him sleep, I knew the journey ahead wouldn't be simple. His sadness had a reason, one I would have to understand and help him face. But in that moment, all I could do was hold him, let him know he wasn't alone, and silently vow to help him carry the weight of his heart. And so the first step was taken, not solving everything, not erasing the fear, but simply listening, loving, and being there. That night, in the quiet living room, I realized that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just be present, ready to catch the heart of someone you love before it falls. The next morning, I woke to the soft sound of his footsteps in the hallway. He moved quietly, almost tiptoeing, like he didn't want to disturb anyone. I followed him with my eyes, heart tight, wondering if he had slept at all or if his worries had kept him awake. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at his breakfast without touching it. I poured him a glass of juice and set it gently in front of him. "Morning," I said softly. He nodded but didn't look up. There was a heaviness in his eyes, a weight that hadn't lifted overnight. "Do you want to talk about it?" I asked, sitting down across from him. He shook his head, frowning. "Not really. I need to figure things out," he said quietly. But I could see through the words. He wasn't figuring things out alone. He needed me. I reached across the table, taking his hand. "You don't have to figure it out alone," I reminded him. "We'll do it together. Step by step." He looked at me then, a flicker of hope mixed with fear. The small spark of trust made my chest ache with love and worry. We decided to start with school. He had been struggling with math for months, hiding his frustration and pretending he understood everything. As we sat together, going through his assignments, I watched the fear slowly melt away. He asked questions, hesitated, then tried again. Each small victory, each correct answer, made him smile, tiny, fragile smiles that told me he was beginning to believe in himself again. "I didn't want you to know I was so behind," he admitted, glancing down. "I thought you'd be disappointed." I shook my head, gently. "I could never be disappointed in you. Everyone struggles. It's okay to need help." The relief in his eyes was subtle but real. For the first time in a long while, he felt safe admitting his struggles. After breakfast, he went to his room, still quiet but calmer than before. I followed, sensing there was more on his mind. He sat on his bed, hugging his knees. "Mom, there's more," he said softly. "It's not just school. It's everything. I feel like I'm not good at anything. I can't make friends like I used to. I feel like I'm losing you and Dad too." My heart broke at his words. He had carried so much alone, convinced he had to be perfect in every part of his life. I sat beside him, brushing his hair from his face. "You could never lose us," I said. We love you, no matter what. You're not alone in this. I promise. He leaned into me, resting his head on my shoulder. The quiet between us was gentle, comforting. And then he whispered, I just don't know if I'm strong enough. That line shook me to my core. My son, small and vulnerable, questioning his own strength, and yet trying to hold it all inside. Strength isn't about never feeling scared or sad, I said. It's about facing those feelings and asking for help when you need it. That's real strength. He nodded slowly, tears brimming in his eyes. The tight knot of worry inside him was loosening, but it was still there, hiding just beneath the surface. We spent the rest of the morning together, talking, laughing quietly, and making small plans to tackle his worries one at a time. I promised to help with school, to talk about his feelings whenever he needed, and to remind him every day that he was loved and valued. He listened carefully, soaking in every word like it was sunlight breaking through clouds. After a while, he looked up at me with wide eyes. Mom, can I tell you something else? I nodded, my heart in my throat. He hesitated, then said, I've been scared to fail at being a good son. I thought, maybe I'd disappoint you, even if I tried my best. My chest ached. The thought that he had worried about this for so long, silently, left me heartbroken. I hugged him tightly. You're already a wonderful son, I whispered. You've never disappointed me. The fact that you care so much shows how big your heart is. We'll get through this together, okay? He nodded, small tears slipping down his cheeks. Okay, he whispered back. Then, just as I was beginning to feel hope, he pulled back slightly, biting his lip. Mom, there's something else. Something I haven't told anyone. My stomach tightened. Another worry? Another secret? I could see how scared he was, but I stayed calm. You can tell me, I said softly. I'm here for you, always. He looked down, trembling. I don't want to. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I've been feeling like I don't belong. Like I'm not enough, even at home. His voice cracked, and I felt a pang of grief so sharp it took my breath away. My son, sitting right in front of me, doubting that he belonged in the one place where he should always feel safe. I held his hands in mine, looking into his eyes. Sweetheart, you belong. You belong here, with us. You are loved more than you know. He nodded, but I could see the uncertainty lingering. His mind was a storm of fears, guilt, and worry. And then he said something that stopped me. Mom, I've been thinking, maybe I have to do everything on my own. Maybe I don't deserve help. The words cut through me. I realized he had been carrying not just the fear of failure, but the belief that he had to be perfect, all alone. I squeezed his hands. You don't have to do anything alone. None of it. Life isn't about being perfect. It's about asking for help when you need it and trusting the people who love you. That's not weakness. That's courage. His eyes filled with tears, but a tiny spark of relief appeared. We sat together for a long while, talking about everything: school, friendships, fears, hopes. I promised him that every day we would tackle one worry at a time, that nothing was too small to share. He nodded, a small, fragile smile forming. The burden hadn't disappeared, but it was lighter now. But even as I saw that spark of hope, I knew there was more to uncover. His sadness, his worries, they had a reason, a deeper reason that he was still too scared to fully reveal. And I knew that when the time came, he would trust me enough to share it. That afternoon, I found him back in his room, sitting on the floor with his knees pulled close. The sunlight fell softly through the window, casting long shadows across the floor. He looked lost, like he was carrying the weight of the entire world on his small shoulders. I sat beside him, careful not to startle him. Hey, I said gently. Do you want to talk? He shook his head slowly, staring at the floor. But I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he pressed his hands together, like he was trying to hold himself together. Finally, after a long pause, he spoke. Mom, there's something I've been scared to say. I didn't know how, or if I should. His voice was quiet, shaky, but there was honesty in it that pierced me. I held his gaze. You can tell me anything, I whispered. I'm not going anywhere. He took a deep breath, trembling slightly. It's about feeling like I'm not enough. But it's more than that. Sometimes I feel invisible. Like nothing I do matters. Like I don't even belong anywhere. My chest ached. My little boy had been carrying this invisible weight for months, maybe years, feeling like he didn't belong even in the one place that should feel safe. I pulled him close, letting him lean on me. You belong, sweetheart. You've always belonged. I know it feels overwhelming, but you don't have to face it alone. He buried his face in my shoulder, and I felt the tension slowly leave his body, piece by piece. I try to be strong, he said, his voice muffled, but it's like, the harder I try, the heavier it gets. I just don't know how to fix it. His words were simple, but the pain behind them was enormous. It broke my heart to know he had felt this way and carried it in silence. You don't have to fix it alone, I told him firmly. We'll face it together. One step at a time. He nodded, small tears slipping down his cheeks. For the first time in a long time, I saw a tiny spark of hope in his eyes, like he was realizing he didn't have to carry it all by himself anymore. He wiped his eyes and looked at me, hesitant. Mom, there's something else. Something I've kept from you because I didn't want to hurt anyone. My heart tightened. Whatever it is, you can tell me, I said softly. I'll listen. I'll help. I won't be upset. He took a shaky breath and finally spoke the words he had been holding in for so long. Sometimes I feel scared about the future. Like I'm not capable of being the person I'm supposed to be. And I don't want to let you or Dad down. His voice was quiet, trembling with fear. Oh, sweetheart, I whispered, holding him tightly. You could never let us down. We love you exactly as you are. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you. He leaned against me, his small body shaking with the weight of all the feelings he had bottled up. We stayed like that for a while, letting the silence fill the room. And then he said something that stopped me cold. Mom, I think part of me is scared because I don't even know who I am anymore. I've been pretending, trying to be what I think everyone expects, and I just don't know myself anymore. His words were raw, honest, and heartbreaking. I held his hands in mine, looking into his eyes. It's okay not to have all the answers, I said softly. You're allowed to figure things out. And we'll be here with you, every step of the way. You're not alone. He nodded slowly, letting out a shaky breath, as if admitting the truth had already lifted a tiny piece of the burden. I'm scared of failing, of disappointing you, he admitted. And I'm scared that I'm not enough for anyone. My heart ached. He had been carrying this fear in silence, thinking he had to be perfect, strong, and independent all at once. I brushed his hair from his face. You are enough, I said. You've always been enough. Being human doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It means you feel, you care, and you keep going. He leaned against me, finally letting himself cry freely. I didn't try to stop him. I let him release the pain, the fear, the sadness that had been building for so long. It's okay to cry, I whispered. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. And being real is the bravest thing you can do. After a long moment, he pulled back slightly, wiping his tears. Mom, there's still more. I've been hiding it from everyone because I thought no one would understand. I didn't want to worry you, but I think I need help. My chest tightened. He had finally said the words I had been hoping to hear, the words that meant he was ready to let someone in. You don't have to face anything alone, I said, voice firm but gentle. We'll get through this together. Step by step. You don't have to hide anymore. He nodded, small tears still clinging to his cheeks, but a sense of relief already visible in his eyes. And then he whispered something that made my heart break and my stomach twist. Mom, sometimes I think I might be broken. Like I can't fix myself no matter what I do. The honesty, the fear, the vulnerability, it was almost too much to bear. But I stayed calm, holding him close. Sweetheart, you're not broken, I said softly. You're learning. You're growing. And needing help doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. He took a shaky breath, finally letting himself believe it, just a little. The journey ahead would be long, but for the first time, he felt like he didn't have to walk it alone. I stayed with him as the sun began to set, painting the room in warm, soft light. His small hands still trembled, but the tension in his shoulders had eased. The fear hadn't disappeared, but it had shifted. He had spoken his truth, shared his worries, and let someone in. And that, I realized, was the most important step of all. The next morning, I found him sitting on the edge of his bed, staring out the window. The sky was gray, and the quiet in the room felt heavy. He looked smaller somehow, burdened by thoughts he hadn't yet shared. I knew today we needed to face what had been hidden for so long. I sat beside him, gently taking his hand. "You don't have to face this alone," I said softly. He took a shaky breath and looked at me, his eyes filled with fear and uncertainty. "Mom, I've been carrying this for so long," he whispered. "I didn't want to upset you, but I think it's time you know the whole truth." I nodded, keeping my voice calm. "I'm listening. Tell me, whenever you're ready." He hesitated, swallowing hard. Then he said, "It's not just school or being good enough. It's more. I feel like I'm failing at being me." I reached out and brushed his hair from his forehead. "You are not failing. You are growing. But it's okay to feel lost sometimes." He shook his head. "No, Mom, you don't understand. I've been hiding something deeper. Something I thought I had to face alone. And it's breaking me." My chest ached as I realized this was the truth behind months of worry and silence. I held his hands firmly. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together. You don't have to be scared." His eyes glistened with tears, and he took a deep breath before speaking. I've been feeling really alone," he admitted. "Not just lonely, but invisible. I thought I could handle it myself, but it's too much. Sometimes, I feel like no one notices me. Like I don't matter." His voice trembled. The raw honesty left me speechless. My little boy had been carrying a weight I hadn't fully understood. "Oh, sweetheart," I whispered, pulling him into my arms. "You matter more than you know. You've never been invisible to me. I see you, I hear you, and I love you. Always." He buried his face in my shoulder, trembling, letting out the feelings he had kept hidden for months. After a while, he pulled back slightly, still holding my hands. "Mom, there's more. I've been scared to tell anyone because I thought, maybe I'm weak for feeling this way. Maybe I'm letting you and Dad down every day." His voice cracked, and I could see the pain behind every word. "You're not weak," I said firmly. "Feeling afraid or lost doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And being human doesn't mean you have to do everything alone." He nodded slowly, letting the words sink in, but I could tell the fear was still there. Then he whispered the words I had been waiting for, the reason that had left him heartbroken for so long. "Mom, sometimes I think, maybe I'm not strong enough to handle life. And I don't know how to fix myself." My heart broke. He had been carrying this thought in silence, feeling it in every moment, believing it was true. I hugged him tightly, rocking him slightly. "You are strong," I said softly. "Stronger than you realize. Asking for help, sharing your feelings, that is strength. Not weakness. And you don't have to do this alone. Not now, not ever." He stayed in my arms for a long moment, letting the warmth of comfort seep in. The room was quiet, filled only with soft breathing and the faint hum of the outside world. Finally, he looked up at me, a mix of fear and hope in his eyes. "Mom, I want to believe that," he said quietly. "I really do." I held his gaze. "You don't have to believe it all at once. Just take one step at a time. And I'll be here for every single step." He nodded, small tears rolling down his cheeks. The tension in his shoulders had eased, replaced by something fragile but real, trust. And then he said something that left my heart aching in a new way. "Mom, I've been hiding my sadness because I thought I had to be strong for everyone. For you, for Dad, for school, for friends. I thought if I showed it, I'd be failing everyone." My chest tightened. The pressure he had felt was enormous, and yet he had carried it alone for so long. "You could never fail us by being honest," I whispered. "Being honest is the bravest thing you can do. You've been strong for too long without letting anyone in. Now it's okay to let us help." He nodded, leaning into me again, and I held him, letting him release months of fear, guilt, and sadness. Then, just as the room felt quiet and safe, he whispered something that caught me completely off guard. "Mom, I think the reason I've been so sad is because I'm scared of losing myself. Of becoming someone I don't like, someone you wouldn't be proud of." My heart clenched. He had been carrying the fear of losing his own identity, believing he had to be someone else to be loved. I brushed the hair from his face and held his cheeks gently. "Sweetheart, you could never make me feel anything but proud. You are yourself, and that's more than enough. You don't have to be anyone else. We love the real you, every part of you." He looked at me, eyes wide and vulnerable, as if he was seeing for the first time that someone truly understood him. And in that moment, I realized this was the reason behind all the worry, all the hidden tears, all the sleepless nights. My son's heart had been burdened not just by school or expectations, but by a deep fear of not being enough, not belonging, and losing himself. And now, finally, he had begun to let someone in. But even as relief washed over him, I could see the lingering fear. There were still questions he needed answers for, still worries to untangle, and still healing to do. The journey wasn't over yet, but this was the turning point. The next day, I found him sitting at the kitchen table, a notebook open in front of him. He looked up as I entered, eyes wary but calmer than I had seen in weeks. "Hey," I said softly. "How are you feeling?" He shrugged, a small, tentative smile forming. "A little better," he admitted. "Still scared, but I don't feel so alone anymore." I pulled up a chair beside him. "That's a good start," I said. "Step by step. We'll keep taking steps together." He nodded, and for the first time, I saw a spark of hope in his eyes. The weight he had carried for so long was starting to lift. He began to talk, slowly at first, then with more confidence. He told me about school, about his worries, about moments he had kept secret. He admitted his fears of not being good enough, his struggle with feeling invisible, and the heavy pressure he had placed on himself. And I listened, reminding him gently that it was okay to feel, okay to struggle, and okay to ask for help. "I think I've been trying so hard to be perfect," he said quietly, "that I forgot it's okay to just be me." My heart swelled. He was beginning to understand something I had been trying to teach him for weeks, that love, effort, and honesty mattered far more than perfection. "You don't have to be perfect," I said softly. "You just have to be you. That's enough for me, for Dad, for everyone who loves you." He smiled, small but genuine, and for a moment, the fear in his eyes softened. Later, we went for a walk in the park. The sunlight was warm, the leaves rustling gently in the breeze. I held his hand, and he didn't pull away. He talked about his favorite games, his friends, and small hopes for the future. And I realized something important. He was beginning to heal, little by little, by opening his heart and trusting that he was loved. At one point, he stopped and looked at me seriously. "Mom, thank you," he said. "For listening. For not being mad. For being here." My chest tightened. The words were simple, but they carried so much weight. Months of worry, fear, and hidden sadness were slowly giving way to trust and understanding. "You don't have to thank me," I said, squeezing his hand. "I'm here because I love you. Always." He nodded, and I could see him taking in the truth of it. For the first time, he didn't have to hide his feelings, didn't have to pretend he was okay. He was allowed to be vulnerable and still loved. That evening, we sat together at home, talking quietly. He drew pictures, wrote in his notebook, and occasionally glanced up at me with a small smile. The weight hadn't completely disappeared, but it had shifted. He was learning to carry it differently, with someone beside him. "Mom, I feel like, maybe I can do this," he whispered. "Maybe I can be me, and it will be okay." My heart soared. He was finding strength in honesty, in love, and in the simple knowledge that he was not alone. I hugged him tightly. "Yes, sweetheart. It will be okay. You are strong, even when you feel scared. You are brave, even when you doubt yourself. And you are loved, more than you can imagine." We stayed in that embrace for a long time, letting the comfort sink in. The house was quiet, but it felt alive with something new: hope, trust, and the knowledge that we could face anything together. The journey wouldn't always be easy, but it would be shared. And for the first time in months, my son looked like himself again, a little stronger, a little lighter, and full of possibility. Before bed, he looked up at me, sleepy but smiling. "Mom, I think I can try again," he said softly. "I don't have to be perfect. I just have to keep going." I kissed his forehead, tears of relief in my eyes. "Yes, my love. Keep going. And we'll be here, every step of the way." That night, as I watched him drift off to sleep, I realized how far he had come. From the boy who had felt invisible and broken, he was now learning to see himself differently, to understand that needing help doesn't make you weak, and that love can carry even the heaviest burdens. And in that quiet, peaceful moment, I knew the hardest part was behind us. The rest was about growth, patience, and shared love, a journey we would take together, hand in hand. Because sometimes, the most important thing you can do is be there. To listen, to comfort, to hold someone when they're small and scared. And to remind them always that they are enough, they belong, and they are deeply loved. The end.